sometimes you get that tight feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, you better go check it out. So I got into my gynecologist. And now 2 years prior to that, I had felt something on the right side and had gotten my first mammogram at 38. And normally you don't get your mammogram till you're about 40. And so when I did that mammogram at 38, we realized it was just a fibroid on my right side. And so I was thinking, and my gynecologist thought too, that maybe the fibroid just came back and it went to the left side, but she still had me go in for a mammogram. Now you always get that inkling in the back of your head, and you really have to listen to what your head or your gut says, because I scheduled myself for a 3D mammogram, which was going to be about 3 weeks out. And something in the back of me said, Marci, you cannot wait. You need to get in sooner. And so I called back and I said, hey, really, what's the difference between a regular mammogram and a 3D? And she said, she explained the differences. She said, listen, we'll take a lot of pictures. That's kind of like the 3D. But I was able to get in sooner without doing that 3D. So I said, okay, let's do that. So I went in, and I want to say it was just maybe a week later, I went in for the mammogram and ultrasound. Now I had dense breasts anyway, so I guess with dense, it's harder to detect things. So they definitely took a lot of pictures. They did the ultrasound, and the radiologist came in to look at things. And then she said to me, what are you doing the rest of the day? And I said, well, nothing. What does that mean? And she said, I'd like to do a biopsy. We see something and we're just not sure. And of course, all of a sudden you kind of freak out and you're going, oh my God, what is wrong? And so the nurse that was there, she held my hand throughout the entire thing. I remember, it was painful. I'm going to be honest. They stick this needle in your breast and then they stick this like machine that makes a big clamping sound. And it was not fun. And I kind of joked with her and I said, how come you guys don't have a stuffed animal or something? Because I need something to squeeze. Because I was holding the nurse's hand and I'm sure I was squeezing her hand a little too hard. So again, I was very fortunate because the radiologist got me in an hour later, where I've heard from other women in some of my support groups that they can't even get in for the biopsy for another week. So again, and I'm not very religious, but I said, God must have been watching me and said, he got me in. He got me into my mammogram fairly quickly. The biopsy was right away. And the radiologist said to me, you'll find out. So that was on a Wednesday. She said, you'll get the results on Friday. So when she left, the nurse looks at me and she goes, we're going to get you your answer tomorrow. And I said, okay. Because I was crying. I had called my husband prior to the biopsy because they had me sit in the waiting room, and I called him and I was just very scared. And so he had to stop what he was doing at work and come over and just sit in the waiting room. And so that Thursday, I waited around all day and didn't hear anything. I kept putting phone calls in. They hadn't gotten the results. And then I had to go take my oldest to her swim lesson. This was about 3:30. And I said to my husband, I still haven't heard anything. I'm going to call. And so I did. And I got the same nurse that helped me out the day before. And she said, okay, let me go check. I'll be right back. And so it's like the longest minutes just waiting there. She finally gets back on the phone and she says, Marci, she goes, I'm so sorry, but you have cancer. And I'm sitting at my daughter's swim lesson. And I was in shock. I was like, I don't even know what I said. I just remember hanging up the phone. I grabbed my daughter. She hadn't even gone into lessons yet. And I said, we're leaving. I just started crying. I had the baby in her carrier. So of course, everyone's looking at me as I'm running out the door, like crying. I get my daughter in the car and she says to me, because she's never really seen me cry like that before. And she says to me, Mommy, what's wrong? And I kept saying to her, Lily, everything's going to be fine. Mommy's going to be fine. We're going to fix this thing. I'm kind of tearing up just talking about it.
As am
But
I.
yeah, I mean, I just kept reiterating, like, we're gonna fix this, you know. And I remember calling my aunt because my parents were out of the country and I couldn't call my mom. And, you know, of course, you want to just talk to your mom. And I called my aunt and I told her, and I said, you need to call my brother because it's just my brother and I. And I said, you need to call my brother and tell him because I couldn't. I was emotionally, as you can tell, I'm getting emotional. Um, it's just so emotional. I mean, I got home and I just started making phone calls. I mean, I had to call my coworker because her and I manage properties together. And I called her and told her, you know, that I have cancer. And I said, I'm going to need help. Because I had no idea what I was getting into. And yeah, and I mean, so I couldn't even tell my parents for about a week. And I kept avoiding all of her phone calls. You know, she would call me, they were in Israel, and she would call me, and I would just say, I'm just so busy. And so my parents know, again, that I'm a workaholic. And so when I say, hey, I'm working with a client or something, they know not to really bug me. And so I would just text her back and say, hey, I'm doing something right now. I'm on the phone call with a client. And so, you know, she didn't question that. So when they got home, my brother and I had this whole plan because they were in Ohio and I'm here in Arizona. And so it was a 3 hour difference. And so he was going to go over to my parents. We were going to get on FaceTime and, you know, just talk about their trip. And then I was going to break the news. Well, of course, you know, everything never goes as you plan it. So I get on the phone and it must have been, I mean, it was early. It was probably 7 o'clock their time. So 4 o'clock my time. And of course, my mom says to me, why is your brother here so early? And why are you calling me so early? And then all of a sudden, my brother starts crying. And so my mom goes, why is your brother crying? And of course, you know, and then I have to break the news. I said, Mommy, I have breast cancer. And that was hard. You know, of course, then she starts crying. And my dad's, you know, still, because of course, that time difference, my dad's still in bed. And he goes, what's going on? What's going on? My mom goes, Marci has breast cancer, you know, and just starts yelling and crying. But I tell you, my parents are fabulous. So they're snowbirds here in Arizona. And luckily at the time, they have a house literally the next street over from us. So my mom was out here for a year. My dad and my brother came out and they helped. They took my kids on the weekends that I had chemo because I didn't want my kids around because I wasn't sure how sick I was going to be. And I didn't really want them to see all of that. So again, I was very fortunate that they were able to do that and help throughout the whole time. Once I was done, I think with radiation, my dad and my brother ended up going back. So I mean, they were here for a good 9 to 10 months, and my mom stayed till I was completely done with everything. So yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I had a good support team, which is very, very helpful.
Wow, thank you for being vulnerable with us, complete strangers, literally.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's very, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but I guess I'll use fascinating and amazing or humble that the fact through the entire time you were sharing your story, it was never very much on how you felt. You were more concerned about how your brother and your kids and your mom felt this entire time. At least that's what I'm taking from it. Which
Yeah,
is
I mean, I definitely had my moments. I didn't really cry a lot in front of my husband, but I remember when I shaved my head, you know, I had my husband shave it in the morning. We made fun. I mean, I had fun with that. I had pink hair. Um, and then he shaved it to a mohawk for me. And then I think it really hit me because I waited till my daughter came home from school and she was like, Mommy, what did you do to yourself? And I said, come on, you're going to help me cut it off because it was still falling out. And it didn't start falling out till my second chemo, but I had her cut it and then he shaved the rest of it. And then when I saw my mom is when I broke down crying. And I said, "Oh my God, this is real." Um, but I had my moments. I mean, there's times when I would just cry in the shower.
Mhm.
And even before my surgery, I'd feel my breast and I mean, I took pictures of myself beforehand. I gave myself a bye-bye booby party. So I had all my girlfriends over and I had a cake made and we played pin the pin the tail on the donkey, but it was pin the I don't know, pin something on the boob. And I put a picture of me up there and then I got the breasts. And so, I made it fun. And I said, it is what it is. I mean, I can't change the fact that I have cancer and I can't change the fact that I'm going to be losing my breasts. So I wanted to make it fun. And I did. And so I did YouTube videos throughout my entire journey. And I just wanted to update women and tell them, from the day I found out, from going through chemo, going through radiation, even going through the aftermath. So when you're all done with everything, I'm on a 10-year plan. So I'm on a pill called letrozole. I was actually on tamoxifen. I started off with tamoxifen, and it puts you into menopause. And so I was on tamoxifen. I ended everything in September of 2019, and I started on tamoxifen. I had scans, just routine scans done in December. And because I wanted to make sure I was cancer free. And I remember my doctor calling me up and he said, "Marci, I have good and bad news for you." And I said, "Oh gosh," thinking, "Oh my God, I still have cancer or something. I don't know." And he
Mhm.
goes, "Well, you're cancer free." He goes, "But you have a blood clot." And he goes, "And it's in the lung." And I said, "Oh, okay." He goes, "You are probably 1 in 1,000 that get this side effect from tamoxifen." And he goes, "In the 8 years he's been in Arizona, he goes, you're my third patient to have this happen to." So he goes, "Maybe you should go buy a lottery ticket." I mean, again, we joke through the whole thing.
Mhm.
And so he immediately took me off of tamoxifen and put me on blood thinners for 6 months and switched me to letrozole. And then I'm also taking a shot called Zoladex. And I'm going to tell you, I will never look at it. I had my husband take a picture of it. And so my husband was raised in a small town in Missouri, and his family is in the cattle ranch business. And he looks at this needle and he goes, "Marci," he goes, "that needle is thicker than the ones I had to stick in cows."
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, it is so thick because it's a pellet that has to go into your stomach. And so I said to the nurses, I said, "I will never look at this." Um, but I made sure I always have lidocaine anytime I have to, like when I had my port put in, I'd always put the lidocaine because I hate needles. So I always rub the lidocaine on my stomach every time I go in every 3 months so I don't feel it. Now it's a piece of cake. I mean, I still don't look at it. I close my eyes when she does it, but I stand up. Like now we have this routine. I used to lay down and she would gather up my stomach. And I said, "You know what? I can do it," because now with COVID, my husband couldn't come with me. Because the first couple of times I was so scared. I was, again, the unknown, like what is this gonna feel like?
mhm.
But now I do it myself. I mean, heck, if I can get poked and prodded and have my breast removed, I mean, I figure I'm Wonder Woman. I could do anything.
Yeah, just about. You can take over.
Yeah, so that's but I tell women too. I mean, there are so many women that are being diagnosed in their 20s and 30s. And a year after everything was done, my cousin, she is in her mid 30s. She had just had her second baby. She said to her doctor, "Listen, I've hit my deductible. My cousin just went through breast cancer. I'd like to have a mammogram and get things just checked out." And again, the doctor said, "Well, you're not 40, but okay, if that's what you want." And guess what? They found breast cancer.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, I get chills every time I tell that story because she would never have known. I mean, she never felt anything, and they caught it very early. She was very blessed. She